Above180.com, taking your bowling game to the next level. Tim Berg and Joey Serrar are ready to hit the lanes, approaching the issues that you, the bowler, want to know. From the latest equipment reviews and coaching to drilling layouts. Now, from Washington, D.C. and the Bowlers Pro Shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, here are your hosts, Tim Berg and Joey Serrar.
We are pleased to be joined today by PBA Tour member Brad Angelo. Brad has one career title, which came back in the 2008-2009 season. He has 4 runner-up finishes and 46 top 10 finishes and does own a PBA regional title. Brad is on the Brunswick staff and was a PBA Rookie of the Year back in the 2002-2003 season.
Joe Serrar here, and our special guest, Brad Angelo. We're going to start with an opening question, Brad, about your coaching clinics. We've been fortunate enough on the show to have excellent coaches such as Deandra S. Beatty. We've had Del Warren on the show. We're going to have Lou Marquez. You've done clinics for quite a while now, and I've heard nothing but great things about them. Do you want to kind of expound on your role in your clinics?
Well, sure. And, the people that have been to the clinics that I've done, they've been really, really nice in how they've helped promote those camps around the country. But, really, I started, doing one-on-one lessons probably 15 years ago. And then when I made it out to the tour, and then after my Rookie of the Year season, I started trying to formulate some bowling camps. And, I put together a good program. The first day of the camp was about what happens before the foul line. And then the second day of the camp was about what happens after you let the ball go. So I tried to break it down that way. But it wasn't until about 2006, 2007, when I really started understanding and working very closely with Rick Benoit, who was our Brunswick tour rep out on tour. I'm telling you what, the man is a genius, and some of the things that he has came up with, just off of the dimensions of the lane and how much really does the ball hook, and different ways to read ball motion, things like that. So I started incorporating those more and more into the camps that I've done, and it's really been a great addition to what I do. So, I don't know if that really answers your question or not, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that I go over at the camps or that I've implemented at the camp that are not things that I had seen anywhere else up until about 4 years ago.
Brad, want to touch on something that has kind of gathered a little bit of attention this week on the PBA.com website. They posted a YouTube clip of your match that's going to be airing this Sunday against Jason Belmonte. And so we thought we'd have you just, in your words, explain what's happening, because it's very hard to put the audio, and we do have the clip on above180.com, the video clip, so people can see exactly what we're talking about. But Brad, just go through and explain what happened to people listening right now.
Well, I don't know how much really we really need to get into this. I mean, I've known Jason for quite a while, and he's always been very, very respectful and, appreciative of the other bowlers. But basically what happened was, the plastic bottle, the little water bottle, I guess Jason, when I was up on the approach, Jason had squeezed it and kind of crinkled it a little bit. And no big deal. I heard it because he was sitting right behind me. And so I put the ball down. And then when I got back up on the approach, I was ready to make the shot, and then right when I got to the top of my backswing, I heard the big crinkle again. And I'm whatever. If I would have struck, would it have mattered? Yeah, I still would have said something. So it wasn't because I didn't strike that I turned around and said something. And Jason, was oblivious to what had happened. Geez, I didn't mean anything by it. And so I didn't think anything of it. So we left it there. After the match, before I left to drive home, Jason and I had talked for a few minutes, and, it was all good. Well, over this last week, I've gotten a few phone calls about that, and a lot of people kind of saw what I felt, and so I went on yesterday to see the clip, and I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it. I don't want to throw Jason under the bus or anything like that, but it was a little peculiar that he had picked up the water bottle when I stepped back up on the approach, and then he was very quiet, and then during the silence of me walking to the foul line, he had, I guess, squeezed it loud enough for me to hear it again. I mean, even when I'm explaining it, it sounds a little goofy and it sounds a little petty, but when you're bowling on TV and the every person in the crowd is silent, sometimes you can barely even hear, Rob Stone or Randy Peterson, who are way down the other end of the lane. Sometimes you can kind of pick up them, and they're just talking normal, just like you and I are now. So it's pretty quiet, and to have that happen at that point in the match, it was just frustrating at that time when it happened. I guess that's really all I can say about it.
This has happened already on TV in the past where an incident comes to mind with Randy Peterson where it was a crowd member who made some noise. So I think Jason Brad, it kind of defends what you're saying where it's so quiet in there that any sort of movement will distract you, where a normal league bowler, it might not be as big of a deal. But because it's so quiet, when something does happen, something does move or make a bottle noise, you do catch it, and it does make you, like you said, you stepped off. And to happen when it did, like you said, it was a little curious. So we'll just leave it at that. I know it was just something interesting to take a look at, and we're hoping to get Jason on to explain his side of this as well.
Well, and yeah, let me say that to defend Jason even before he comes on the air, that Jason has always been extremely nice and extremely respectful. So I guess I still have to give him the benefit of the doubt. At the end of the day, it happened, and sometimes you don't cry over spilled milk, but deep down, I wish it didn't happen at all. Then we wouldn't have to have this conversation. But Jason and I are friends, and I'll be rooting for him, through the rest of his career. So I understand. I mean, things happen. Sometimes when we're bowling in our qualifying, and I might have a string going, and you got the front seven or the front eight, and you trip that 4-pin and you kind of slap it out like, yeah, you got a break. Well, you didn't know that a guy 4 lanes down, he was trying to fight for 2-0 in the 10th, and you caught him, and he threw a bad shot. I mean, but that little stuff, that happens, and I've been on the other end of that as well. So, I guess the best way to handle it is we'll just leave it at that, and Jason is Jason, and he and I are going to be friends from here on out, I'm sure.
Right, and I got a follow-up question there, Brad. Do you think the initial distraction, be it advertent or not, took you out of your frame of mind or focus that you obviously need to have when you're on TV competing?
Oh, you mean the first one?
The first one.
Certainly it interrupted the flow, but my job as a professional is to get back into that mental cycle, which is another thing that I talk about in the camps that I've also learned from Rick Benoit. Staying in the flow of your mental cycle, commitment, execution, evaluation, and preparation, all of that, staying in that cycle. That's why I put the ball down, took a deep breath, and got back in that cycle. So that's my job, to be able to do that. Distractions happen, and if I'm going to blame every bad shot on some other distraction, shame on me.
Hey, Brad, I have a question about your relationship with Brunswick. You've been with them for a number of years. You can expound on how many years and how they picked you up as a member. It's an interesting story from what I've heard. And if you feel Brunswick equipment matches up properly for today's conditions for you and others.
Sure. I can tell you that in 2002, up until that point, I had bowled for a living for 13 years. And, out in the mega bucks, the high roller and the eliminator and those events. And I had a chance to go out on a PBA tour, and I started looking around and talking to some of the companies. Well, I decided to sign with Brunswick. The only reason I decided to Brunswick was because Rick Benoit was the tour rep, and I wanted to make sure that he was obligated to work with me. So I signed that first contract for free, because I knew that Rick would shorten that learning curve. And even though I may not be getting the immediate gratification of a contract for money, that I knew in the long run it was going to make a huge difference in my career, and it has. So the relationship with Rick has been one that he's became one of my best friends, and it's really, really a good relationship.
And what about their equipment line, Brad? What can you talk about since their move down south? First year or two might have been a little growing pains in that respect, but I personally feel their latest releases have been very, very good.
It's interesting because I still hear a lot about the Brunswick move to Mexico, and I understand where people are at regarding their move, and the perception is that they moved all those jobs, they took jobs away from people here in the United States, but I got to tell you, by making that move, they ended up saving jobs here in the United States because they were on the verge of going out of the ball business. So because of that move, they were able to keep their headquarters in Muskegon, Michigan. They probably saved a couple of hundred jobs. And with a number of the people that they had to let go, they really did right by them. They offered them severance, and they also offered an option to be able to help train them or make a transitional move within the company. So, I understand the people's perception of them moving, and yes, there was some growing pains with the equipment, but all in all, I think it was a move that had to be done. Regarding the line of equipment that we have now, I can honestly say that, and this isn't marketing. I'm not one to really blow smoke or sugarcoat things, but the line of equipment that Brunswick now has is the most versatile line of equipment that they have had since I've been on their staff, including when they were the ball to have, when they had the Inferno line. I believe that there's other companies that have ball motion that certainly fits in well on certain patterns and certain types of patterns as well. But as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's a pretty general agreement across the board with a lot of the guys that on a fresh pattern, assuming we're bowling on a flat pattern, on a fresh flat pattern, that the Brunswick equipment matches up the best of any of those. And, a lot of people say that Brunswick balls roll early. No, it's not that they roll early as much as it is that they really create a smooth motion, which, once I show in the camp the whole 60 feet of the lane and the importance of having a smooth ball motion, that people can start to understand why Brunswick has a purpose and should be in their bag. But then at the end of the day, a lot of people, they end up gravitating towards other equipment because maybe an image thing or because, they like to see the ball hook more or make that quick motion. And certainly that has a place. But without a doubt, when you're playing shallow angles, when you're not playing that big steep angle through the front, when you're playing shallow angles from wherever it is, Brunswick equipment is the best in the industry, without a doubt.
Well, Brad, it was a pleasure having you join us on the Above180.com podcast. We are going to let you get back to your family. Like you said, you have a wife and kids, so we will let you go, Brad. Again, thank you and best of luck as you continue on the tour. And like Joey said, we hope to be talking to you again.
Guys, I love what you're doing. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thanks, Brad. You're a class guy, and nothing but the best in your future.
Thanks a lot, Joe. I appreciate it.
Good luck and good bowling.